Hello, I'm Fiona McAlpine, and I've just been working on this collection of paintings for the Thackeray Gallery for the last year during lockdown, and looking forward to the show.
Thanks for doing this. I know it feels really awkward because, it's not exactly how we plan to sort of communicate, is it? And yet we're forced to do it through lockdown. So here we are again. But when you're approaching when I say to you, do you want to have another solo show? And you say, yes, no, horror, whatever it may be you feel. What do you feel at the beginning of approaching a solo show, and how do you start?
Well, I think what I've learned to enjoy is just almost like the limited amount of time. So if I give myself a year to approach the solo show and just think to myself, I like this. I like the sort of pressure and the developing ideas which you've thought about probably for quite a long time, but you haven't had a chance to really get to grips with, because I don't know, there's a deadline is definitely good for me. So I think now I definitely approach it with delight, really. The thought that I'm going to discover things along the way that I didn't necessarily know I was going to find, and with the whole painting process. So I think that's probably I think I enjoy the process now rather than I think immediately after a show, I think you are I find it very exhausting, the whole process of putting on the show. I haven't got accustomed to sort of putting myself out there in such a sort of way yet to really move on that quickly. But I love the moment after the show when I just really let myself go and just experiment a lot. But then I do enjoy the process of actually working within a year's time frame towards your show in particular.
Obviously that you've just finished, or maybe finished at the end of the year, because it's at the Framers now.
Yeah.
It's obviously all been created during an extraordinary year for the whole world, and you've had, from, if I've understood right, quite a lot of your family at home in lockdown. What was that like for you? What did it feel like to carry on creating your paintings, but possibly with a completely different backdrop from usual?
Again, I think I enjoyed the framework that it gave me. I'm a terrific procrastinator, so I think I find it really helpful to know that between breakfast and lunch, I really wanted to have done some work, because I really enjoyed the feedback. That's what I did enjoy having around me, was more feedback, what I was doing. Everyone who was in the house was excited by watching me paint, and I actually really enjoyed sharing that with them. So.
Okay, because that's interesting, because some artists, they don't want anyone near their studio at all in the process. They don't want any opinions, but you found that sort of an important part of the process.
Very much part of the process. I mean, not just because I want people to say they like my work. I almost like it when they're sort of critical, and I get even more excited if I'm really enjoying the bit they don't think they're enjoying, because that makes me think I know what I'm doing and I'm going to prove you wrong in the end, so to speak. So I don't know. I do enjoy the.
And when you are setting up in the morning for a painting, I mean, do you try and complete that painting in the day, or, as you said, you're a procrastinator, so do you procrastinate over the last 10% of finishing a painting?
Oh gosh, I mean, my paintings take, I'm sorry, months. I know they don't look like.
No, I mean, some people it's a very impetuous, very quick, very instinctive thing, and then they deliberate for weeks, and other people it's agony right through from beginning to end. It's so personal.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what I like, and I hope other people enjoy about my paintings, is that, when you look at them closely, you can see all the skeletons of past marks and past ideas, all helping to make a lovely sort of surface. And so I'm changing my paintings all the time, basically. So I'm usually working, probably on about 5 or 6 paintings at any one time.
Okay, that was something I was going to ask you, was do you tend to dance between boards and canvases whilst you work? So you might be working with blue paint and then you'll sort of dance around. Is that how you might work? Or?
Well, actually, weirdly, with the colour palettes, I tend to keep different palettes for different paintings, so I'll probably maybe at any one time have 4 or 5 palettes going, which all live in the deep freeze, and and that's, you know, I pull them all out at the beginning of the day, but I like to try and keep a palette to one painting, but obviously some palettes do then move on into other paintings, but no, I tend to.
Okay, a palette, that's very, so you can have 5 palettes behind you in your studio where you are now. Obviously I can see the table behind you, and then obviously on there you could have up to 5 palettes on the go.
Absolutely, and I also paint in different parts of the house, different parts of the day, depending on the light. So the light's incredibly important to me. So I love the morning light in our kitchen. So I have an end of the table where I'm usually working on a painting. And then I have this glazed area, which is fantastic for any sort of light, but equally could be too cold first thing. So I follow the light around, and I you know, I go outside a lot. You know, I'm always, if I'm stuck, I just head outside and walk up the hill and, you know, just re-inspire myself, really.
Yeah, because actually quite a lot of your paintings, I mean, on the first look, people will think that they're just still lives, but actually they're still lives with a backdrop and then another backdrop. I mean, I would say this is the 3rd solo show you've done with Thackeray, and the last 2 have been absolutely wonderful, and I have every belief that this one's going to be just as glorious. But for me, it's almost like another layer has come onto your paintings from the last one 2 years ago. In terms of, so I mean, this is too crude a way to put it, and I'm not the artist, so you can put it better than me, but, you know, is that I see the still life in the first instance, and then I see a room, be it a curtain or a window, whatever, and then I see a landscape beyond. So it's a 3-layered view, depending where your eye goes in the picture. And I'd say that that's an extra dimension from 2 years ago in my mind.
Well, I'm really pleased you can see that, because I absolutely love a formal structure to a painting. So I will very definitely use the far distance, which I hope is sort of, you can see right far away at some point it might just be a glimpse of it in a painting, but that I definitely hope it's there. And then slowly I'll come forward, and then as you say, you've got the still life right up front. But sometimes the still life is merging with the background, and the background's merging with the foreground. You know, that's all part of it, really, sort of abstracting into each other. And I suppose in the end, the painting, I never really know how a painting's going to finish. The whole thing is a sort of massive journey. But you're right, I'll probably start with a familiar object, and a familiar landscape, all in my mind, that I'm going to sort of reorganize on the canvas. And then from there, really, it's really it's the color that takes over, or maybe I'll bring in something from the garden, a leaf or a flower, and that takes over. But it's different every day, really, as to how the painting might progress, and where
and how your mood is, and how the seasons are. And I mean, it's lovely. Them have your garden gate, and it's a feeling of sort of leading out. It's a really, really simple motif, but it's very effective.
Yeah, no. I mean, gates are a massive part of my life. I love a gate, so they have to find a way into my painting somehow. But you're right, it's that whole exciting adventure, what might be beyond the gate, you know, that basically I want to bring back into the painting, basically.
And who would you say, I mean, it's a sort of, you know, one of those questions I slightly dread, but I'm going to ask you anyway because you're a painter, but who would you say, when you look back in the history of art, that you think is just everything, that they had everything going for them, that you loved?
Gosh, I know, well, I mean, honestly, I look at, there's probably about, well, there are many artists, but I mean, I suppose I started with Braque. I just absolutely adored the way he kind of chopped his canvases about. I loved that. And so then leading on from him, I suppose it was Nicholson, Ben Nicholson and Winifred Nicholson and all those sort of modern British artists. I love Keith Vaughan's. I love his colours. I love his landscapes. I love the way he blocks them across the canvas. You know, so there are many artists.
Quite cubist. You seem to be quite drawn to the cubists and that sort of very linear, edgy, blocky.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sort of paradox in my paintings, really, is that I dream of being the ultimate sort of abstract artist, and yet I'm just completely drawn to where I live, and there's a sort of soft billowiness to the landscape around here, you know, that I guess in the end inevitably creeps back into the paintings. And these, you know, the flowers, I'm always thinking I must stop painting flowers, but I don't know, I'm just completely drawn to.
Well, I think it's a lovely marriage between an object and something natural. And then the way you place them together with that element of very much sort of the blocky braque cubist element. All the artists you listed I see completely in your work, but with the marriage of something really soft and feminine and beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a painting behind the camera here, and it's called High Summer, and you know, it's got everything in it that I sort of love about where I live. It's got one of my favourite jugs in it, and then it's got this sort of wild arrangement of flowers that I've mostly probably picked out of the hedgerows rather than out of my garden. Right. And it's got the garden gate. I don't know. It does feel, it's sort of, yeah. It's. I can look at it. Great.
And talking about paintings in particular, just moving on to talking about some of the paintings. Obviously, the painting behind you, Blue Still Life, absolutely gorgeous with the well, talk to me about this painting.
I think this is a painting which I start with one idea, and then I think it was going to be a landscape originally, and I can't remember how the jug just arrived, because I mean my process of painting, I suppose, is the first few marks I just want to just get down as fast as possible, you know, some colour, some brightness and some movement, and then I immediately rub it all off, and then I'll probably think, oh, what's going to happen next, and then I'll bring in a sort of comforting starring element, which is probably one of the flowers or the artichoke, or anyway, they then need to be rooted, so in comes a vase. But I think what I love about this one is what I'm always trying to do is create vertical structure, you know, quite dramatic vertical structure, and get, but not for it to be a sort of really strong colour. So what we were talking about earlier, really, so that in the end you end up dancing across the painting is how I really want to end up your feeling. And I suppose that's the flowers that are doing that. But I love the strength equally of the image. You know, it still feels very strong. But I'm not someone who likes perfect symmetry at all, and that's obvious in the way I live and, you know, all around my house. I'm not that sort of person at all. No, I love things to be, yes, sort of pushed off so that you're not, I never want to be falling off a painting, but I do want to feel the tension between the sides of the painting, really. I want there to be a relationship with all the borders of the painting, definitely.
Yeah. I think, and that's what keeps them so well contained and yet open.
Yes, hopefully.
And then obviously you paint a lot of poppies, you paint a lot of sunflowers. Are they your two sort of favourite go-to flowers?
Yeah, well, the poppies here are amazing. I mean, they just they spring up out of nowhere. It's just terribly exciting. You know, they're the sort of found plants all around. I mean, I've tried to buy smart ones, but they never really take up here. And then sunflowers, I grow sunflowers every year. And
it's one of the things that I think for you must be a very therapeutic and calming part of your work, and tell me if I'm completely wrong, are the small, lovely gem works you do, the sort of 19 by 25 centimetre ones.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you find them a relaxing part of your process, or whether they're the start of, you have to do those to get to the bigger things, or they're obviously completely standalones, don't get me wrong, and they're absolutely gorgeous. But do you find them, you can almost do them unconsciously?
Definitely. I absolutely love doing physical paintings. They're my sort of like my comfort food. So that's mainly what I'm sort of set up to do in the kitchen. And you're right, I sort of dream of them of being sort of maquettes or studies for much larger paintings, but often they just become their own little people, and try as I might blow them up to a degree, you know, the idea of them, it's strange. It often just simply doesn't work, because of course on those little paintings you've got, what I love is you can get such a scale the brush, a big brush mark on a little painting is hugely dramatic and dynamic, and very exciting to do and then play with and watch. Whereas the one thing I just haven't mastered yet, and I hope I will do one day, is to sort of mix enormous puddles of paint so that I can literally paint with a brush mark that big,
Right.
pile it on, because that's what I haven't cracked. And so my very large painting in this show got both those vibes in, but that's so much more. It's painted in a completely different way to the little ones.
Talk me through that painting then.
So I really enjoyed doing it. That's probably taken me the best part of a year, probably. And it's just layers and layers of quite thin, diluted paint, painted on with big brushes and then taken off again with rags, and just slowly, when you stand up close to it, you can see just what's been going on before. And I just hope that comes through in the painting, really. All the sort of the drawing that's happened along the way, and what I've just decided to keep in the end. It's all part of the painting, basically. But I really enjoyed doing it, and keeping the colours much sort of softer. And anyway, it was an interesting experiment. So
would you say that was the most sort of challenging painting for you in the show?
Yeah, it is usually the most challenging painting, but one that I like the challenge of. I always try and think I'd love to do 2 enormous paintings, but for the show. But no, it is definitely much more of a challenge. But a challenge I really relish. I really enjoy.
Well, also, if it takes you a year, obviously not working on it every day, but the process of a year to work to feel it gets to its completion, that makes it sort of special, and it's difficult to say, well, I'll do 2 or 3 of these. That's just not how you work.
And I simply haven't got the space to have 2 or 3 sitting there looking at me every single day as well, because it's quite a sort of
exactly. What made you start doing paintings that were long and slim? Because I think that's a very, very classic format of yours, I'd say now, and I think it works beautifully. But it's quite more unusual to paint like that, isn't it?
Yes, I think. I think originally I saw a painting, and it was hanging above a doorway.
Right.
And I thought, I've got. I'd love a painting above my doorway, and literally that's how it started. And so literally years and years and years ago, I just cut a bit of card to fit above the doorway, and ever since it's sort of gone on from there, really. And as you say, I love the way with a letterbox. I love the way you called it a letterbox. That's a very good description. It gives you many more options to sort of divide up the canvas vertically and to slowly dance your way across it, so to speak. I think I really enjoy that process. You can change the mood from one side to the other side, and gone through different experiences in the middle. So that's I think what I really enjoy about it.
How do you feel when something sells and potentially you never see it again? What does that feel like?
I'm genuinely so excited that somebody else wants to live with one of my paintings, and just very excited by that whole idea. So it definitely spurs me on to paint more. I love the idea that somebody, and then it's, occasionally, obviously, you stumble across one of your paintings unexpectedly, sitting in its new home, and that gives me such a sort of kick as well. I really enjoy that whole process.
Do you like, what do you feel when you see your work on a wall in the gallery and it's all gone from you to the framers to the gallery? Do you have 1 or 2 seconds of objectivity, or is it agony or ecstasy to see all your work together on a wall?
I think a combination, but there is something. I do always think you hang it beautifully, and to see them kind of singing and talking to each other, that is really interesting, because that never happens. Because in your studio they're just a jumble, and then you say they're off to the framers, and you don't see them again until they're hanging, and it's a sort of deep intake of breath. But the last 2 shows I've absolutely loved it. Loved seeing them talking to each other, and I find that.
I know this is a, you know, very sort of sensitive area, but this show you wanted to dedicate to a family friend, Rose, who passed away very sadly last year. It's, you know, I think that that's a really lovely thing to do. And I didn't know if you wanted to, whether there was a particular work you painted with her in your mind, or whether she was just in your mind through the year, you know.
She's very, yeah, she's a very, very close family friend, and really, I think it's about, for me, it was just desperately trying to keep the happy memories alive, you know, through such sort of sadness. So, and she had terrific work ethic herself, brilliant person, completely brilliant person. And so for me, it's about proving, you know, that life, you know, it's all about working hard and working, I don't know, it's so difficult to explain, but it's obviously huge sadness, but so many happy memories, and
that, in a certain way, it's a celebration of life.
Yes, definitely, yeah.